There's an interesting statement that I've seen thrown around the self-improvement space for quite some time now. And that statement is, everything is mental. On the surface, I'm sure it can provide some benefit to those who need some mental motivation. And the idea that your problems can be fixed with the right mindset is somewhat true. But this type of advice is of almost no help to people who have gone through severely traumatic experiences. Because traumatic stress causes intense physiological changes in the brain that can't simply be fixed with the right mindset. In part 1 of this 2-part video series on trauma, I'm going to explain exactly what happens during a traumatic or overwhelming experience and how it physically changes your brain, mind, and body to keep you in a constant state of stress. Because sensing, naming, and identifying what is going on is the first step to recovery. To preface this video, I want to start off by saying that most of the ideas that I will present in this video come from the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And I highly recommend that everybody watching this picks up that book. It will be in the description below. Even if you don't suffer from severe trauma like me, this video will give you a much better perspective on why certain things trigger you, why you view the world the way you do, and where some of your mental problems stem from. So let's start off with an oversimplified definition of the word trauma. The way I would define a traumatic experience is any intense negative experience that causes a developmental change in the brain, mind, and body. And that experience is so intense that any remembrance of that past experience in the present will make you relive it through your physiological sensations, and your body, mind, and brain will be trapped in the past. In simpler terms, trauma convinces you that your brain, mind, and body are all still in that traumatic experience that happened in the past, and it makes you relive it. PTSD reorganizes your experience of life, it makes you feel hopeless, and it convinces you that the entire world is a dangerous place. For example, to someone like myself, a man walking by me on the street just seems like a man walking by me. But to a victim of SA, that might look like a man wanting to attack and prey on them, even though this isn't his intentions at all. Another example of how trauma can affect an individual's perception is what is called the Rorschach test. This psychological test presents you with an ambiguous ink blot that has no deeper meaning, and the experimenter asks you to describe what you see in that ink blot. An untraumatized individual might not think much of it. They might describe an animal or some inanimate object. But someone with, let's say, PTSD from war or some other life-threatening experience will start to describe depictions of murder and blood in a simple ink blot. And this is what I mean when I say that trauma distorts your experience and perception of reality. After a traumatic experience, you start to interpret even the most non-threatening of scenarios as extremely dangerous to your safety. As a result, you are constantly hypervigilant to threat at the expense of spontaneously engaging in your day-to-day life. But even if you haven't gone through something severely traumatic, you may relate to what I'm describing here. A really bad breakup can make you keep your guard up constantly to someone you can potentially get into a new relationship with, and make you completely untrustworthy of the opposite sex or whomever you're attracted to. It can also keep you in the state your body was in right when the breakup happened for years afterwards if you never learn how to properly accept and integrate that experience. The same is true of other negative experiences like bullying, rejection, or failure. These significant negative experiences will dramatically shape the way you view and react to the outside world. The role of your caregivers and how much attention and response they gave you as a child will also massively affect how you deal with life's challenges and disappointments later down the line. This is another more subtle form of trauma. If you grew up in a household where you never felt seen or appreciated, which is a child's most important needs while in their developing years, you will go throughout your life stuck in a child's mindset, overworking yourself and beating yourself up until someone notices you. Or you'll act up and put yourself in dangerous situations and purposefully self-sabotage until you get the attention you so desperately crave. Because our first lessons in self-care come from how we were cared for. By far, the most important predicator of how well people cope with life's inevitable disappointments is the level of security established with their primary caregiver in the first 2 years of their life. This is a silent but extremely harmful epidemic that isn't being talked about enough, as single mother and father households and financial instability continue to rise. To escape the feelings of trauma, traumatized people will either shut off their emotions completely, turn to self-harm, or start to live in denial. Erasing awareness and cultivating denial are often essential for survival, but the price is that you lose track of who you are, what you're feeling, and of what and whom you can trust. So now, let's look at exactly what happens to the body, mind, and brain during and after a traumatic experience. But before we do that, I want to talk about a self-care app that could help you alleviate some of the issues that you've been dealing with, which is Fabulous. Past negative experiences that leave you feeling anxious or stressed can make it extremely difficult for you to keep a routine and stay on track with healthy habits. But with Fabulous, you can create a routine that finally sticks using behavioral science principles. They completely personalize the experience for you based on your specific struggles and needs, and give you an actionable step-by-step plan you use to build a routine full of healthy habits. You can choose from more than 100 recommended habits or create your own. And unlike other self-development apps, Fabulous offers a much more gentle, softer, rewarding approach backed by science. They also have what is called dedicated programs, where you choose a journey that immerses you in your own personal adventure over the course of several weeks, which can be a great place to build the foundation of a healthy routine. With Fabulous Premium, you also get support circles and coaching sessions, which I've personally found really helpful to deal with negative thought patterns. So if you're interested in building your ideal daily routine, then the first 500 people to click the link in the description will get 25% off Fabulous Premium. Thank you to Fabulous for sponsoring this video. Now, the majority of a traumatic experience affects two parts of your nervous system, which are crucial to look at to understand what's going on when you're traumatized: your central nervous system and your autonomic nervous system. Your central nervous system consists of your brain and spinal cord, but we will specifically be looking at how trauma changes the function of the brain. It's best to look at the brain in three different layers: your reptilian brain, your emotional brain, and your rational brain. This is a concept that I've gone over briefly in my video about social anxiety, which can also be a symptom of trauma. Your reptilian brain is located near your brainstem in the lowest part of your brain. It's associated with controlling your energy levels and basic functions like eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, and crying. All the first things that you need when you come out of the womb, and that is why it develops first. The next part located above it is your emotional brain, otherwise known as your limbic system. It is one of the two parts of your brain that gets most impacted by traumatic experiences. Whatever happens to you during adolescence or during a traumatic experience contributes to how you emotionally react and perceive the world that your brain creates. It also controls your fight or flight response, which is your body's way of preparing for a potentially threatening situation. That will be important to understand later. Lastly, we have the most recent part of our brain, our rational brain, or frontal lobe. This is the part of the brain involved in complex, rational thinking, language, memory, and impulse control, and it doesn't stop developing until around the age of 25. This part of the brain is crucial for harmonious relationships with other humans, and tells us that other people's anger or threats are a result of their emotional state and not ours. Amongst almost all cases of trauma, there's a common trend. Your emotional brain is hyperactive, while your rational brain is underdeveloped, suppressed, or shut off completely. It's been shown in brain scans that whenever someone with trauma is presented with a scenario that can potentially make them relive the trauma, it causes their limbic system to start firing off, while simultaneously shutting off their Broca's area, which is located in the rational brain. The Broca's area is a part of the frontal lobe that is involved in the production of speech. And this is why trauma patients have such a difficult time recalling their trauma. The parts of their brain associated with being able to produce speech literally shuts down while simultaneously turning on their defense mechanisms as a way to keep them safe. Another part of the frontal lobe that has been shown to shut off in those with trauma is the DLPFC, or dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This is the timekeeper of the brain, and it tells us how our present experience relates to the past and future. When this area is shut off or suppressed, our brain will convince us that we are still stuck in that past experience and that past experience will never end. And knowing that whatever happens to you is finite is essential to making an experience tolerable. In people with trauma or underdeveloped rational brains, like those who are under the age of 25, it is much more difficult to activate this higher level rational brain. And so people much more easily lose control over automatic emergency responses, like prolonged startles or aggressive outbursts. A good example that I'm sure everyone can relate to is when you get into an argument with someone. When someone threatens your ego with a negative comment about your appearance, worldview, or intelligence, your amygdala starts to perceive this as a threat and essentially takes you over. You start yelling back, getting overly angry, sweaty, and your heart starts beating really fast. Without proper function or development of your frontal lobe, you will always be reactive to even the smallest of perceived threats. In people with severe trauma, it's like you're in that experience of being in an argument with someone and being overly stressed and reactive, except pretty much all the time. They are stuck in a constant state of what I mentioned earlier, which is fight or flight. This is a survival state activated by the emotional brain that is run by the second part of your nervous system, which is the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system regulates your involuntary physiological processes, including heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, digestion, and sexual arousal. Whenever we feel threatened in any way, we go through the three fundamental physiological states of the autonomic nervous system. The first thing we instinctively turn to is social engagement. We will call for help or support to expel the threat or to help keep us grounded. If that fails, we go into fight or flight mode. We have all experienced this state to some extent. It's when your body gets ready to either fight the threat or run away from it, and it starts pumping your blood faster, your adrenaline kicks in, and you start sweating. And in the rare case that we can neither engage in social support nor activate our fight or flight, such as if one is getting SA'd, abused, grows up in a rough home environment, or is trapped in a life-threatening situation for too long, the body will shut down and expend as little energy as possible. This is called freezing or collapsing. Trauma is experiencing one or more of these states of survival, except at an abnormally high rate. Victims of trauma almost never feel safe, and the only way they can save themselves from experiencing the trauma anymore is to shut off those parts of the brain that let us know we're alive and self-aware. They feel chronically unsafe in their bodies, and as a result, they become experts at ignoring their gut feelings and numbing the awareness of what is happening inside of them. Simply put, they learn to hide from themselves. And as a result, they can't leave any room for nurturing, love, creative exploration, or finding a sense of purpose and direction. All of these things require you to feel safe in your body and have a sense of agency over yourself. That is, you have to have the ability to be aware of your subtle, sensory, body-based feelings. The greater that awareness, the greater your potential to control your life. To improve your sense of agency and emotional control, one must have the opportunity to explore their past without immediately transporting themselves to it, recognize that it is in the past and no longer in the present, and find a way to feel fully alive and engaged in the present moment. This involves improving the activation of your rational brain, which then causes you to not immediately react and become stressed to a negative sensory experience. By doing so, you increase your awareness of what exactly is happening to you when you start to feel triggered. You learn to remain calm in the face of those sensations, be fully open and honest with yourself, and accept that what happened has happened. No matter what you have gone through or continue to go through, I promise you that there is a way out. There is a solution for you out there, and with each new day, we learn more and more about trauma and the physiological impacts it has on us. And in the next video of this two-part series, we're going to explore the potential solutions that can help you recover and make you feel fully alive and engaged in the present. There is an incredible amount of information in the book, The Body Keeps the Score, that I was unable to fit into this video, along with a lot of real-life stories in there that can help you connect with someone that has maybe gone through the same thing that you have. So I highly suggest that you pick up that book even after watching this video multiple times. And yes, you should watch this video multiple times so you can really understand and recognize and put a name to what is happening to you when you start to feel some sort of traumatic stress. I hope that this first video helped you gain a better awareness of what goes on in yourself during negative life experiences and made you a little more empathetic to just how much suffering and struggle humans go through on a daily basis. Thank you to all the patrons on this channel on Patreon. If you don't know what this is, it's a platform separate from YouTube where I'm putting out exclusive content and you can talk to me one-on-one over the phone on there. Link in the description to that. Check out this other video by me if you are struggling with your mental health. It might help you, and I'm signing off. Thank you guys. I love you. Hope it helped. Peace.